Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Social Media Branded, hosted by me, Theo Bransell. I'm an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and a social media expert. And today I'm not hosted, I'm joined by Frank McKinney yet again. And last week we interviewed him about the business, real estate, and what has made him so successful that he is today. But today our focus is going to be on the spiritual side of life. So if that's not your interest, then this episode might not be for you. But if you are interested in spiritual and getting fulfillment in your life that way, then you might get something valuable from this interview. So welcome back, Frank.
I will tell you, if you're watching right now, even if the word spiritual puts you off or religion puts you off, we all want to succeed in the business of life. And really, that's what today's going to be about. It's not about succeeding in the business of business, because the business of business is just a small part of life. Everybody that I've ever met wants to succeed in the business of life. So that's what I'm going to do today, or hopefully with Tio help you do. I'm not going to preach at you. I'm not going to throw the Bible at you. I'm not going to pound on a pulpit like a preacher, but I'm going to share with you that some of the things that I've done and been able to do in my life that have allowed me to have abundance, that have allowed me to put together my professional highest calling, which we talked about last time, which was the beautiful real estate that I create on the ocean in Palm Beach, on speculation, selling 40 plus houses with an average selling price of over $15 million, all on speculation, so I don't have a buyer when I start these projects. But what's it all for? And that's what we're going to get into today. Everybody in life wants purpose. We don't want to just go through life even succeeding. Success in and of itself is not a purpose. That's just the end of working very hard. But we'll explore today with Theo.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet seemed to be a little bit off. Okay, now it's better. And we have gone through your journey from broke to now being one of the most successful real estate developers in the world right now. And I believe that you mentioned on an interview that you did with Hunter a couple of weeks ago that you're actually close to closing the deal on the current house.
We are very close. Probably by the time you air this episode, I will not be able to have that aquasphere right over my right shoulder, probably your left shoulder. I'm actually at the house that we just finished on the ocean. It's a $14 million house that is under contract and should close here very shortly.
Okay. Do you know what you want to do after this project?
What I'm going to do, T.O., is I'm going to wait until the deal closes. It doesn't matter that it's under contract. In real estate, any day could be the meteor shower. In other words, tomorrow could be the day that a meteor hits the earth and it upsets everything. That's a metaphor for time is a deal's worst enemy in real estate. Actually, time is a deal's worst enemy in any kind of business. You want to shorten the time between contract and closing, which is what we're working on now, because I've seen some pretty unusual things happen between somebody signing a contract and when they're supposed to close. Once it's all closed, maybe we'll have to come back a third time to share what I'm going to be doing. But a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, honestly, is the direction that my life will be headed, has been headed, and will actually be expedited once we sell this final masterpiece.
Yeah. So you don't have any set plans? I'm going to do X, Y, and Z when the deal closes.
Right. No, I don't allow myself to go. There's a fantastic word that everybody should look up. It's monomaniacal, monomaniacally focused on one thing right now, which is making sure that this transaction closes. I don't allow myself to be distracted outside of that. Sure, I have my social life and I have my family after hours, but when it comes to working or thinking about what's next, I've put thought into it, but I don't want to be distracted. And I find too many people, they aren't executioners, meaning they start something here at 12 o'clock And then by the time it gets to 3 o'clock, they move on to something else. By the time it's 6 o'clock, oh, this is too hard. I can't believe I'm still at this. By the time it's 9 o'clock, they become too associated with the process instead of the actual result. I'm an executioner. I will close the loop completely before I move on to something else.
Yeah. Have you always been like that, or did you learn that somewhere along your journey in life? Can you hear me?
You know, I think it's really important we spend just a, what's that? I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. So the question was, where did I learn to be an executioner?
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't something that I was taught by someone else, but I've noticed that if you use the hands of a clock, we get very excited when we start an endeavor. It could be a financial endeavor, it could be a spiritual endeavor, it could be a diet, it could be a relationship. We get very excited. And then if we go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, most people at 3 o'clock become, because their attention spans are very short, and that's definitely true for people your age and a little bit older. Between, say, your age and 30 years old, the attention span is extremely short. That's not an indictment or a problem, it's just a fact. And then once you get to 3 o'clock, Tio, I find people like a flea would jump from one thing to the next. In real estate, I'll use the example. You could be a short seller for a while, then a wholesaler, then a retailer, then you could buy bank-owned property, then you get into foreclosures, then storage units. Very few people will stick with something long enough to see it through. I think last time in our interview, we talked about being an overnight success took 25 years. So at 3 o'clock, resist the temptation to be what I call a flea, because a flea jumps from one topic to the next, one thing to the next, and they never sit still long enough. Be prepared to put in 20 years to become that overnight success. So let's move from 3 o'clock now down to 6 o'clock. Let's say you got past the urge to jump on to some new endeavor, something new in social media, for example. You stuck with it. Now it's 6 o'clock. What I find happening at 6 o'clock, Tio, is that's the drudgery. That's the 9 to 5. That's this house that I built is under construction. It's halfway finished, and I show up on a Saturday, and there's no plumbing yet. There's no water to the house yet, but somebody took a crap in the toilet. So there's no way for that crap to be cleaned out of the toilet. I got to clean it out because there's no water running in the toilet yet. This is when you're in a business and you start scratching your head and you're halfway through, and after 30 years, I'm cleaning crap out of a toilet still. Oh my God, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So this is when you're tempted because it's so challenging, it's so difficult, and you're halfway through that you jump to something else, okay? I call that person, so the first person that quits at 3 o'clock is a flea. They bop around like a flea to different things. If you've made it halfway and you quit because it's too hard, you're what I call a half-asser. You do things half-ass. You don't ever see things through. You're a half-asser, a half-asser. Don't be that. Get through that low point in your career, in your life. Push through it. Clean the crap out of the toilet and move on, and eventually you'll have this beautiful, aquasphere over your shoulder. Then let's move to 9 o'clock. So remember, you got excited. You started something at 3 o'clock. You resisted the temptation to jump to something else. At 6 o'clock, you clean the crap out of the toilet. You moved past the low point. Now you're at 9 o'clock. You're almost there. This doesn't happen to many people, but I've seen it happen to 15 to 20% of business owners. They become so consumed by the process of, by way of example, the real estate, the process of building the house, of marketing the house, the process of brokering the house, the process of furnishing. The point at 12 o'clock when I started was to build something and make money at it. It isn't the process that we become enamored with. So at 9 o'clock, I see people actually, that person is afraid of success. And again, it doesn't happen very often, but it's almost like, you're too young to relate to this, but it's almost like the woman who got divorced 5 years ago, and she still talks about how horrible her husband was and how she hates men and marriage is horrible. Like, she's associated with the process of divorce. The point was to move on. The point was to build this house and make money. So don't be very careful that in your business you don't become enamored with, intoxicated by the process. The point in business is to make money. And some people, when they see that finish line, remember, you're at 9 o'clock here, 12 o'clock's right there, you're almost there. They're afraid to succeed. Oh my God, what if this actually works out? The subconscious says. And they're self-destructive. They get in their way when they're this close to the finish line. Don't become one of those people that is afraid of success. Only 20% of the time it happens, but boy, it's too bad, because you've made it all the way past 3, 6, and 9. Become what I refer to as an executioner. Now, if you go back to medieval times, or even today's times, I guess they still execute people. There's no alternative. If you're an executioner, you have one job. You can't be like a flea and jump to being a court jester. You can't at the bottom of the hour, you can't quit. I mean, people are counting on you to pull the lever and, do your job. You can't be afraid of success because you're this close. You've got to execute. And I love that analogy of becoming an executioner. Start what you back up. Finish what you start. Finish what you start.
So, to be honest, I've myself have been for the past year. I was almost like the flea, jumped from one thing to another thing to another, and I did one thing one week. The next week, I did something completely else. But thanks to Paulie, which I know you've talked to a little bit, Paul Kasanowski, he helped me realize that you need to get a grip and actually work, figure something out that you really want to do, and then do it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And, Paulie's right. And it's okay what you experienced as 18. It's better to experience it at 18 years old and get it out of the way. Because I see 35-year-old people still doing that, twice your age. I learned at an early age that okay, you're going to be tempted, and especially now in today's times, there's so many opportunities to jump from one thing to the next. Get past that. Now, the challenge for you will be at 6 o'clock when you're like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I can't believe this is this hard. I can't believe I haven't made any money yet. And then you're going to be tempted to move on. Don't do it. Because that's really, the flee part that's easy. To get over that is actually very easy. That's just an attention span thing. At the bottom, at 6 o'clock, which really, by the way, usually happens after 6 months. I can tell you 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. At 6 months, that's going to be your biggest challenge is getting over the oh my God, is this so hard? Oh my, I can't believe I'm going to wait that much longer to make money. Once you push past that, it's highly unlikely somebody like you is going to be afraid of success. You'll blow through the 9 o'clock temptation to be associated with the process of making money instead of making money, and then you'll execute. You'll get to 12.
Yeah, and you would say it almost passes in months as well. I know we used the analogy of a clock, but would you say that it is from, from the first 3 months, then from 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9, and then 9 to 12?
Yep. I would think that by 12 months, if what you've started, you should be able to start to see some results. It's okay after 12 months, whatever you started. Now, even in real estate, to be honest with you, if you started in real estate, I don't know what it's like in Sweden, but in the United States, you can buy a first-time home buyer house for, 200 grand or less, 150,000. You could buy it, fix it up, and sell it in well less than a year. You could do that. So yeah, I think a year is enough. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be a super successful person after a year. It just means that you've identified your passion. You've identified your highest professional calling, what it is at TO's. By the way, to define a professional highest calling, my definition is you are a little bit better than most at doing what you do to put food on the table. you're very passionate about it, and you have a belief that you're a little bit better than most. You're not better than everybody. You're just better than most. And that's how I define a professional highest calling. You can be in that for 10 years, let's say, Tio, and then decide to do something else. Like I'm soon going to be doing something else after 30 years. But that 1 year process should help you identify, yes, this is a direction that I want to take my life.
Yeah. And you have you experienced this not only in real estate but also I mean I know you've done a lot of charity work but also in the marathons. Have you experienced similar?
Yeah, I have conditioned my mind to look. Like we said in the first interview, I'm highly uneducated. I really, I don't have the benefit of a formal education, and so to me, I had no alternative but to work really hard. Like I couldn't work smart at the beginning. I didn't know smart. I just knew hard. And so in my ultra marathon running, you better believe at mile 90, mile 90 of that 135-mile race that I've run, 12 times. I mean, I'm throwing up. My eyes have rolled back in my head. Mind you, I've been running for 90 miles straight in 125-degree heat. For those of you who weren't on the first episode that we had together, it's called the Badwater Ultra Marathon. It's the toughest foot race in the world, according to National Geographic. It's run through the Death Valley Desert in 125-degree heat, not a 125 Fahrenheit for 135 miles. So yes, I mean, and there's been times I haven't finished, Tio. I mean, I've run that race 12 times. I've finished 7. I've failed 5. But the times that I was at my lowest point, the lowest point, which is applicable to life, not just this marathon, faith, patience, and the passage of time allows most of our low points to pass. You've got to have faith. I do have faith. By the way, faith, by way of the Bible, in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 says, faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see. It's a beautiful passage, right? Being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see. So I had faith that I could press on for another 45 miles or press on when somebody crapped in my toilet and I had to clean it on a Saturday. That's really important that you all be able to push through that low point.
Yeah. And speaking a bit of religion, what was your first do you remember your first ever spiritual experience, or haven't you really had one?
Yeah, no, nobody's ever asked me that. It's a good question. So I was brought up Catholic. I still am a practicing Catholic. I'm very proud of it. So Christianity, and then underneath Christianity is Catholicism. I mean, going to church every Sunday as a little boy was more of a requirement of my family. I associated something positive with it because after every Sunday, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So my father and mother would take us to a donut shop and we could have donuts after church. So I loved church because it meant I got to have donuts after church. I was really happy to go to church. And then I can tell you that even though I resisted the going to church, and I was a very, very troubled youth. I mean, when I was your age, I was in a lot of trouble. I spent 7 different times in juvenile detention. And I don't know what they have in Sweden or around the world, but juvenile detention is where you go to jail before you're an adult. After 18, you go to real jail, but before 18, you go to juvenile detention center. And I was arrested, locked up 7 times before I was your age, before I turned 18. And I remember like the 5th or 6th time, might have been the last time. Matter of fact, I think it was the last time. I was locked up for a long time. Like there was no date that I was going to get out. And I remembered my faith, and I was alone. I was terrified. I was a white kid in a mostly black detention center. Thank God I could play basketball, because the black guys, you know, they kind of gave me a break because I could play basketball with them. But I picked up the Bible, Tio, and I started reading it. And I read it. This isn't the Bible, of course, but it's close. We're going to talk about this book in a second. I read it cover to cover. And the day that I finished it, the next day I got out. I didn't know I was going to, but it took me 33 days to read that book cover to cover. I didn't have anything else to do. You know, the Bible's like this thick, so it took forever. And I just realized that my mom, I actually, when I left that detention center, you're supposed to leave everything behind, and you leave your jail clothes behind, and then you come out with whatever you wore in. And I made sure that I hid this underneath my clothes, because it meant so much to me. And my mom, on my 40th birthday, actually recovered it, and she put on the spine, she said, "My son's savior." So had I not read that Bible back then, and really started to realize that I needed to take out the eraser of life. Let's just pretend this is an eraser. I needed to turn around to the chalkboard of life and erase all this behavior that I was doing as a teenager. And that it was what I was reading in that Bible that helped me. It became my best friend. I mean, Christ became my only friend, really. I mean, I had a few friends in there, but the fear went away. And even though I was incarcerated, I was excited to get out and start my life fresh. And I remember, Tio, I was visiting with the chaplain of the detention center, which is kind of like the priest. And I remember looking out a window, and the detention center was located on 25th Street. And I remember seeing the 25 on the sign. And I said to myself, by the time I'm 25, I'm going to be making $25,000 a year. Well, by the time I was 21, I was making $100,000 a year as a tennis instructor. And that was the most impactful spiritual experience, earliest one that I had.
Yeah. So you read the Bible for 33 days and then you got let out. Was there something in particular in the Bible that basically what's the switch that made you, I need to rethink my life?
Yeah, I actually should have brought that Bible today, because I took notes in there. I was looking at my handwriting. It's still in there. It's a long time ago, man. That is like 40 years ago that I did that. And I remember the story. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Bible, there's a story of the prodigal son. And the prodigal son it's a parable that was told by Jesus, where there was two sons and a father. And one son took his inheritance from the father and went out and squandered it. He gambled it away. He used it on loose women. He used it on drinking. And he lost all of it. He basically lost his life. And he came back and he saw his father, the pigs from his father's farm, eating more than he was eating. And he longed to be forgiven by his father. The father in the story is a metaphor for God the Father. And he went back and he asked for the forgiveness. And wouldn't you know that his father, God the Father, put a ring on his finger, put a beautiful robe over his shoulders, and welcomed him back. And to me, I'm a very literal person, and I saw that father as my dad, because my dad, I probably disappointed him by my behavior, and I wanted to be forgiven by him. And yet at the same time, I knew that my Heavenly Father, because some of the things I was doing was really bad. I mean, stealing things and selling stolen goods and selling drugs and stealing cars and, you name it. Anything that was exciting, I was doing it. And I didn't think I was forgivable. And when I read that, I realized the prodigal son in the Bible, if you read the story of the prodigal son, it's basically a troublemaker that goes off and, blows everything. Well, that was me. And I realized that, you know how many times I went prodigal son on my life? Like in the Bible, that guy only did it once, and then he was welcomed back. I have done it a half dozen times in my life and have been welcomed back. That was the switch. And at the same time, Tio, as I was interpreting the passage in the Bible as a 16 or 17-year-old, I was sharing those interpretations with other people in the detention center. And that meant a lot to me. Like I could see them opening up, and I might have saved, a few people from self-destructive behavior. That's one thing. Now, as you fast forward to my adult life, that passage that really is the entire thesis behind this book, The Tap. And it is, and I didn't realize it back then, but I did as a more of an adult. It's a passage from the Gospel of Luke that says, "To whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected." And if I dial back the clock to when I was your age, I was, voted least likely to succeed, right? I had a horrible GPA and being locked up 7 times before I was 18. But yet I'm succeeding at a really high level. I'm doing extremely well in real estate. This is now, as an older adult. And I'm thinking, wow, a lot had been entrusted to me. Shouldn't I be sharing those blessings with those less fortunate? Shouldn't I be, even though I'm providing this beautiful housing to very wealthy people, and I'm very good at it, this is my professional highest calling, what about the folks who have no shelter? What about the people who have no housing? What about the children in Haiti that are eating dirt flavored with bouillon and lemon juice? And I took that passage to heart. And almost 20 years ago, we started our Caring House Project Foundation based on that premise, where in this book, I really hope, yes, I hope you buy all my other books, but this book it says the endorsement, "Our prayers are answered. McKinney reveals how responsible stewardship guarantees success in the business of life." So if you can see the image there very, very closely. This is the image from the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's painting, where this is God, hand of God. And in the Sistine Chapel, if you remember, it's the 2 fingers, he's touching Adam's finger, the first human being on earth. Well, I took Adam out of the picture and I put you, the reader, there. And this is what I call one of life's great tap moments. That's, the name of the book is The Tap, no subtitle. So how many times in life, and look at the spark, look at the electricity, look at the passion, when that happens to you, and God comes down and puts his finger on your shoulder and says, "Okay, Tio, I'm calling you to more." It isn't just going to be social media expert. You're going to go on and teach young people when you get older how to be the best on social media and how to be a responsible steward with those blessings. That's what I'm tapping you to do. Well, this book teaches you how to recognize when one of these moments happens to you. Like a lot of people, when this happens, that little tap, "I don't have time for this. This is an annoyance. Get off my shoulder. What is this?" No. It teaches you how to listen for it. Like, what does this really mean? And then how to take action on it. And Tio, that experience I had in juvenile detention when I was about your age was a significant tap moment. Had I not heeded the call, had I not listened to what I felt was being said to me, I would have been out of detention. I would have turned 18 and I would have started getting arrested as an adult, going to real jail. So, that passage, "To whom much is entrusted, much is expected," is something that I hope you don't have to be into religion. Please don't tune me out, because that is a Bible passage. It is a great life mantra. Agnostic, atheist, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, Christian, it doesn't matter. Adhere to that passage and you're going to have a really joyous life.
So is that passage something that, you read the whole Bible, and I assume not only once but at least a dozen times, if not even more. But that passage, when you first read it, did you understand it, or was it something about it? Because I've heard you a lot of times say it, and you said it on our interview, you said it on the interview you did with JT, and the one that you did with Hunter, and even last Sunday when you were with the church, even said it. So is there something, you've briefly explained why you really essentially love that passage, but more exactly, what is it about it? Frank?
And I'm not saying that you just referenced, because to me, you and I spend an hour together. There's one or two main message, because getting back to succeeding in the business of life. So you can help people. I saw you post about what is it? The incredible Tracy, or amazing Tracy? Tracy. Oh, are you frozen?
Hello, Frank? Hello, Frank? Sorry about that, everyone. Seems to be something wrong with my internet. But yeah, Frank, what especially about that passage is it? What was it about it that made it connect with you?
First of all, I think the devils know we're doing something really good right now, and he's trying to mess up your recording. I wouldn't doubt it. Oh my goodness, that's too funny. I've never had a problem. I'm sure you very rarely have problems. Back to the passage, to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. First of all, it's very simple. And succeeding in the business of life. Okay, so the reason I shared it on all those platforms that you referenced, not because I need to hear it again. I understand it. It's very important to me. It works for me. God rewards responsible stewards. God rewards responsible stewards. So what does that mean? You've been blessed with some form of what I refer to as the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. And those blessings were not meant for your sole benefit. They were given to you, entrusted to you, so that you would share them with others who will likely not succeed at T.O.'s level. And so realize that everybody watching this, and everybody on all those other platforms you just referenced, and every stage I get on, I reference the same passage, that much has been entrusted to you. You may not know it yet, especially somebody your age, but believe me, a lot has been entrusted to you. Therefore, a lot is going to be required to you. And the passage goes further to say, the next sentence says, and to whom more has been entrusted, even more will be required. Go to Luke 12:48 and read the whole thing. It puts a lot of pressure on people that are very successful. Good pressure. So I realized, because I was at my low point in my life, well, I had a few low points, but in my early 30s, mid 30s, I was extremely successful at selling high-end real estate. I just sold the most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County at $12 million at the time. But I had lost all the heart in my soul, Tio. I was very depressed. I had a lot of money, but is this all the success makes you feel this terrible? I wouldn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I was putting on a good front, like I was faking it like I was really happy, but there was a hole missing. A whole part of my being was missing. And I couldn't figure it out until one day, use another prop. I'll use another book. Let's pretend this is a newspaper. Now you, at 18, you don't read newspapers. You go online and you read them. But if this was a newspaper, I was being written about in the newspaper about this house that I sold for record price. So I went out and I bought a bunch of copies. Actually, I put a quarter in and I took like 10 copies out because I knew I'd want to keep them all. And I opened it up and I started reading. So we would open up newspapers like this and it'd make a noise, like the paper would crackle. And on this side of the column in the newspaper was the article about me. And on the other side was an article about a homeless man being fed out of the back of a beat up old van by a soup kitchen. I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm going to read about me. You know, did they quote me right? Did they get my hair right? Are my clothes looking good? What about the house in the background? Does that look good? And I'm so, again, monomaniacally focused, egotistically focused on me, but something kept drawing my eyes to the other side of the newspaper column. And on that side of the column was a man that if I don't put, like hair care product in, and I don't dress, nice and put a flat iron in my hair, I could look homeless real easy. And there on this side of the page, but for the grace of God, go I. Why did I end up on this side of the page, Tio? I was in juvenile detention 7 times. I didn't have any education. I had no money. I had no connections. But yet I'm being written about as this successful real estate investor, building and selling a $12 million house. What right turn did I take? And what left or wrong turn did this man take? Because he looked just like me. I had to find the answer. That was, besides being in juvenile detention, that was the most epiphanous tap moment in my entire life. So I didn't know the answer. All I knew was I'm going to go volunteer at that soup kitchen. I'm going to go serve meals to the homeless people 1 hour a week. That's all I committed to. And this was a little over 20 years ago. Wouldn't you know that my passion for what I did professionally started to come back. There was the flame that was in my soul that was doused by greed and consumerism and materialism and self-centeredism. That flame started to burn again. And I related to the homeless people. I've met over 10,000 homeless people in my life. Most of my book tours, I've written 6 books, involve going to homeless shelters and soup kitchens and food pantries and shaking the hands and meeting 10,000 homeless people plus. Tio, if I hadn't answered that tap by going to volunteer at that soup kitchen and realizing I had a spiritual highest calling, there wouldn't be 27 self-sufficient villages in Haiti now. I would have never moved from serving the homeless here in the United States to taking care of the desperately poor and homeless in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, that being Haiti. 27 self-sufficient villages later, 12,400 children later that we're caring for, that were eating that mud, flavored with lemon juice. That, to whom much is entrusted, much is expected, is how it changed my entire life. And my legacy, even my legacy now, it won't be for this beautiful aquasphere or these 40 beautiful houses on the ocean that I've built. These will be torn down in 20 years because the land will be so valuable that the structure will be rendered physically, functionally, and economically obsolete. They will tear it down and build something new. But the lives that we rebuilt over in Haiti can never be torn down because that's generational. And it gave me what I talked about in the first 5 minutes of your program, Tio. It gave me my purpose back. And so, yeah, I could have retired back when that article came out almost 20 years ago, a depressed person with a bunch of money. But now there's a purpose to build these houses because we build, as my wife says, we build the big ones so we can go over to Haiti and build a lot of little ones. That's why, when I hope someday you can hear a full talk that I give, 2 hours, sometimes I've gone as long as 8 hours, that I'll teach you how to be a millionaire in real estate. That's a piece of cake. But what about when you start making a little money, or even before you have the talent or the treasure, or even the talent, what about the time that you could take right now in Sweden to find a homeless shelter, a soup kitchen, a place where elderly people are shut in, a children's hospital, just spending 1 hour a week in the presence of somebody who needs you, Tio, who needs your presence, who needs to know you care. By the way, when I met those 10,000 homeless people, they weren't looking for money from me. They wanted me to recognize them, to notice them, to speak to them, to ask them their name, ask them their story. And that's the first thing I do when I meet somebody on the street, because I do a lot of it. I meet probably a homeless person every week now. I go stop and talk to them more than once a week. What's your name? Tell me a little bit about your story. Tell me about where you're from. Try to earn their trust. It's not about here's $5 to go to McDonald's. So I'm sorry about the rambling and the long answer, but that's why I encourage people to understand that they've been entrusted with a lot. And in exchange for that, a lot's expected of you.
Yeah. It's like if you give a king all the power, you expect that he will do something good with it.
That's right.
So, yeah.
You know, there's a saying that, let me think. I want to rephrase it. Sharing your blessings, not sharing your blessings. It's when you give, you don't do it out of obligation. That's trading something. You know, that I don't owe anybody anything. I don't, because I'm successful, I don't owe the people in Haiti anything. I don't owe the homeless people in the United States. I don't owe them anything. So I'm successful and I make a lot of money. It's a stewardship. It's a calling. It's a responsibility that I have from God to share those blessings. And so it's not I don't owe you. It's an obligation. If that makes any sense. That makes it's a lot more joyous when it's not something that I owe to another person.
Yeah.
Give
So,
back. That's what I was going to say. Everybody, well, Frank, you do such a giving back. They didn't take anything from me. I don't owe anything. I don't need to give them back anything. I'm sharing something that was given to me by way of God with those less fortunate.
and when did you first, was it a few years ago or was it decades ago that you first noticed this passage?
No, it was decades ago. It was, well, I would say it was over a decade ago because it prompted me to write this book. Is that what really, both my spiritual books, I have two. I got one Christian romance novel. It's also based out of one passage in the Bible. A whole novel was written out of one passage in the Bible. And one of the ones that I really like that's recent, that will play into what we're talking about here. Let me just look it up verbatim for you. This is beautiful. So this is how you will succeed in the business of life. This is how you will live an abundant life. This is how you will have joy in life. This isn't how you're going to feel better about going to church. It's not about going to church. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without even knowing it. That's from Hebrews 13:2. So basically, I do that every day of my life that I can. I will go out of my way to acknowledge the invisible, to acknowledge the person whose society pays no attention to. It doesn't even have to be a homeless person, Tio. It could be a custodian in a bathroom. It could be a maid at a hotel. It could be a short order cook at a restaurant. Those you show hospitality to strangers, and I can tell you by looking in the eyes of those forgotten, those invisible people, I know I'm showing hospitality to angels. I can see it in their eyes. So though that doesn't cost anything. There's no money. You don't have to have any money to do that. And I'll tell you what, as you grow older, if let's say you were, closer to my age or whatever, you've been around a little bit longer, and you and I went out to dinner, like you and your girlfriend and me and my wife, I could tell what kind of person you are by how you treat the server, how you treat the waiter, how you treat the hostess. And I can tell you, I've been out to dinner, and this is Palm Beach. I've been out to dinner with a lot of rich people. And when I see them mistreating or taking for granted the lowly, the $10 an hour worker, I will never go out with them again. And I'm very keen in observing how they treat the busboy, the lowliest of lowly at that setting. And, I've taught my daughter the same thing. When we go to a restaurant, at the end, of course, we tip very well, but I'll go back, I'll walk into the kitchen with her, I did this when she was tiny, to find the dishwasher. And I'll hand the dishwasher a $10 bill and say, thank you for these dishes were super clean. They were beautiful to eat off of. You do a great job. Those kind of things don't cost a thing. And you just made somebody's day. You just made somebody feel like $1 million. And by the way, it's not going unnoticed by God.
Yeah, and especially those people who, as you said, the dishwasher, who is the invisible person in the restaurant, and you doing that. I mean, who knows what happened to that person today and what happened to him that day? That could have been life changing, but as you said, hospitality to strangers might be, you might accidentally give it to an angel.
So Tio, if you can do that for the rest of your life, I'll be so proud that I met you, because that's a small little thing that you can do. And as an experiment, next time, it's too bad the airports are kind of closed, but next time you fly and you're in a major airport, there's always custodians that are cleaning up, as people are moving about. Those people are truly invisible. Nobody recognizes them. Same thing if you go to a concert, or a big event where somebody's sweeping up. Nobody even And I sit back there and I watch humanity walk right by these people, bump into them as if they don't exist. And it's that kind of thing. When my daughter was younger, I would make her sit there and watch me. And I said, do you think those people are invisible? I mean, I see them, you see them, but nobody else sees them. So we'll always go up to the person cleaning up in the airport and tell them how beautiful this section of the airport looks. And here's $5. If I happen to be carrying extra books, I'll give them a book. That is such a simple practice, Tio. And when you go out to dinner, you go to a place that is in a public forum, look for the lowly, look for the invisible, and simply recognize them for the job that they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, something I've always, not always, but something I started to do. No, I've done it pretty much my whole life, and I've been really aware of what goes on around me. I'm very observant of people, so I can see, for example, homeless people. I can see the invisible people of the society, but it's actually to acknowledge them and and show them that I see them. So go up and talk to them, give them a tip, for example, and acknowledge that they actually exist, and not just see that they exist.
Yeah, you don't even, if you don't have any money in your wallet, what the compliment or the acknowledgement that you give is going to be worth more than the $5 that you're going to share.
That's definitely something I'm going to start to do.
And now here's the thing, because a lot's going to be entrusted to you, Tio. When you start to do it, when you're with other people, allow them to see you doing that, because it will rub off on them and they will become, like you, tapped to do the same thing. And it's not for everybody, but live, here's my thing with religion now. And the reason that a lot of people are going away from religion is because there's so much dogma. If you read the Bible, there's a lot of dogma associated with religion. But if Christ were here today, not 2,000 years ago, wearing sandals and a robe, and shuffling through the streets on a donkey, because nobody can relate to that today. But if he was here today with long blonde hair, right, with a beard, with like he would wear nice blue shoes. I mean, how would he treat the lowly? How would he treat the indigent? How would he treat the invisible? How would he treat the gay person? He would love everybody. And so I simply try to be Christ how I would imagine him being today. If I try to be like him 2,000 years ago, or I try to encourage you to be like him 2,000 years, nobody wants to hear that crap. They can't relate to it. But today, if he came into the society today, I guarantee you, those are the kind of things those small little things that he would do. And maybe he would preach a little bit more than I would, but preach with your actions. Don't preach with your words. That's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
If I could spend one last, we got a little bit of time. I want to talk about the two most referenced topics in the Bible. One is money. Actually, that's number two. So money is referenced second only to love in the Bible. The number of times money is referenced is the second most referenced thing in the Bible. So we talked about being a responsible steward for the blessings God's given you. And one of my mentors, who was the 50th richest person in the world, he was the co-founder of Amway, was the one who taught me a lot about being a responsible steward. Frank, his line was, you can only eat so much food, you can only wear so many clothes, you can only drive so many cars, and in his case, you can only fly so many planes and have so many houses. Like he had a bunch of planes and houses everywhere. Once you reach that point of consumer maximum, like you're maxed out on what you can consume, then be a responsible steward and share it. So we've spent plenty of time on that. But what about love? So in the Bible, my book, The Other Thief, I don't have it in front of me. Let me just grab it. Hold on a second. So sorry, Tito.
No problem.
This is my most recent book that came out about a year ago. It's called The Other Thief, and it's a Christian romance novel, and it's very edgy. I won't even get into all the trouble I got into when I wrote this book, because it takes what I feel is the most beautiful representation of love in the entire Bible. And it's in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verses 33 through 43. So if you're writing it down, it's Luke 23, 33 through 43. And so it was a scene where Christ was being crucified. And when Christ was crucified, there were two thieves that were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. So the one on his left, so let's back up for a second. You don't get crucified or put to death because you're a thief. These people probably killed somebody. I mean, they didn't steal from 7-Eleven in Jerusalem back then. They probably killed somebody. So there's a thief on his right and a thief on his left. So by the way, on the cover of the book, this is Christ over here in the foreground. This is one of the other thieves. So the thief on his left turns to Christ and says, I'm going to use paraphrasing, if you're the savior of the world, get us down from here. Like, we're all being accused of a crime and you're some big savior. Like, get us down from these crosses. Like, save us. Just get us, we're done. Let's go. We're criminals, but you're a superhero. Get us down. Christ doesn't answer. The thief on the right says, we're being justly accused for the crimes we committed. This man is innocent. He turns to Christ and then says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. So that is, I'll translate that. What he's saying is, forgive me for what I've done. I believe you're the savior of the world. Forgive me for what I've done. He never met him before. He's hanging there about ready to die. He lived a horrible life. Murder, rape, everything. He turns to Christ and says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. What does Christ do? Turns to him and says, I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise. Basically saying, your sins are forgiven, and yes, I'll see you in heaven. Like that. Every time, I still to this day get goosebumps. When I read that for the first time on May 1st, 2017, well, it stuck with me on May 1st, 2017, the most beautiful showing of love in the entire Bible. Turning to someone who didn't deserve the grace, the mercy, the love, the forgiveness, and the redemption, and giving it to him, offering it to him, knowing that he was probably, he didn't pass judgment, was a horrible person. The thief on the left dies, right? Probably goes to hell. The thief on the right is, to this day, I can't wait to meet him, assuming I go to heaven. He's up there with Christ. So what that means in today, and the reason I wrote an entire book about it, a modern day version, was the world is in need of grace. Oh my God, of love, of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. And where it starts is with the mirror, Tio. Like, whatever you've done in your past and I've done in my past, if God's willing to forgive you, who are you to hold on to your own sin? He's willing to forgive you. Who are we to feel the guilt associated with our own sin? So yes, it's a very graphic book. There's it's the 7 deadly sins that attack this character on the right, and bring him from a place of success as a Christian singer, singing to 20,000, all the way down to basically metaphorically having hung himself on the cross. So I wrote it because I wanted people to feel that grace and that mercy and that love, that forgiveness, and that redemption was available to them today. And it starts with believing that you are deserving of it, and then asking for it. Now that's a little preachy, I understand it, but couldn't we all use a little bit more love, a little bit more grace, a little bit more mercy, forgiveness, and redemption? And I'm a firm believer that we should, we need it.
Yeah, 100%. I know we are out of time right now. Do you have to go right now?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. So I have one almost question. Last week when we talked, I asked you what is happiness and how do you get it? And one of the reasons why I've asked that question to not only you but everyone else that I have interviewed is to get their point of view of what happiness is. And something that happened to me roughly a year ago was that I started to think a lot about happiness and really what it is. And what usually when I speak, one of the things I speak about is about happiness. And I open my speech with, I have figured out what happiness is. So essentially, what I have broken happiness down to is having happiness and being happy are not the same thing. Having happiness is the state of mind of happiness, but being happy is when you experience joy. And I just want to see what you think of the 4 pillars of happiness that I have basically formulated. So the first one is, as you said last week, joy. That we have to experience things that we enjoy and things that we like. For example, might be listen to music, watch movies, be with friends, and that kind of things. The second one is purpose and meaning, as we've covered today. You get your purpose and your meaning from helping the people over in Africa and also helping homeless here in the States. And the third one is being grateful for what you have. And essentially, because if you are not grateful for what you have, then it doesn't matter how much purpose and meaning you get or how much joy you get, you will never be grateful for what you have. And the fourth thing is, don't do things you don't want to do. And basically what I mean by that is, don't spend your whole life in a factory if you don't want to do that. Of course, we all have to do things, do paperwork, work on the computers from time to time, but don't waste your life doing something you don't want to do. And I just want to see what you think of that.
Purpose, joy, gratitude, and don't do something you don't want to do. I cannot add to that. That's beautiful. It's true. It's simple. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I'm learning from you. I don't need to add to that, Tio. It's a beautiful representation. Purpose, joy, gratitude. We need to find one word for the fourth thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's much of an explanation, so you can figure that out. I've just found that all of those things, those 4 pillars that you call them, come down to an inner feeling, an inner sensation of there's a passage also in the Bible that says, with prayer and petition and with thanksgiving, allow your your prayer requests be known to God. Then the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds. I don't know which passage it is, but you can look it up. That, to me, that peace that surpasses all understanding is what I continue to seek. And that takes all of your 4 pillars. And once you can have that internal peace that surpasses all understanding, then nothing that happens to you because life's tough, life's going to give you scars, and you're going to get sick, and you're going to get hurt. None of that stuff will matter. And it's elusive. It's very elusive, especially to a type A person, especially to somebody who's driven, especially to somebody who puts a lot of pressure on themselves. And I am all of those things. So therefore it is elusive, that peace that surpasses all understanding. It comes and goes. And I don't know if I'll ever have it completely. But the pursuit of the process is the joyous one. And I commend you for those 4 pillars. You're right on.
So you would think, one of the things that I never want to say is that I'm right, because we can't know anything ever for sure. But would you say that it isn't wrong?
Would I say what? That you're right or wrong?
No, would you say that it isn't wrong? That it isn't right, but it isn't wrong?
It is what, the 4 pillars?
No,
4 pillars that you came up with.
Yeah.
Well, the 4 pillars they're right. They're not only not wrong, they're accurate. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Because what people who are listening to this, and people that you'll come in contact with until you're my age and beyond, that's all we seek, happiness. That's at the core of everything that we're working on, is happiness, the seeking of happiness. And because we know it's not the money, it's not the pursuit, it's not the passion, it's none of that's we are pursuing that to become happy. The new car, the new wife, all those things. So you can focus on those 4 pillars and really for the rest of your life not go wrong. You'll add to the foundation of those 4 pillars, but the reason they're in the 4 corners of the foundation of your life is they're solid.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have any other questions. I think people have gotten really good value if people have listened this far. But do you have anything you want to say to close this interview out?
Well, again, 2 things. One is you need to write a book. Have you written a book yet?
A small ebook, small changes to make you healthier today.
All right, so you need to write a book, and you need to use those 4 pillars right there, and you need to relate it to primarily your demographic. I mean, of course, we'll all read it, but relate it to the 18 to 30-year-old. Write it like an 18 or 30-year-old could consume it. Make it nice and short. Doesn't need to be longer than 150 pages. I think it would be a killer book that you've come to that conclusion at the age of, by the time you publish it, maybe by the age of 19. So that doesn't help your viewers, but it helps you. So you should do this. The last thing I'll just tell you, is to your viewers, is to, if you want to go to Disney, I've said this last time, so if you were not on the last show, frank-mckinney.com. You can read sample chapters. Matter of fact, this book right here is the only book that I know of that has a movie trailer that we made for the book. So you could go to theotherthief.com and watch the movie trailer. You can read sample chapters of all 6 of my books. If that doesn't excite you, take a tour through the house that I'm sitting in right now. A brand new house on the ocean, $14 million house. You can tour through every square inch. Narrated tour by me.
Sorry, I actually did the tour, and I know the sphere get a lot of attention, but my favorite part of the house was actually the elevator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to give it away. You got to go take the tour. It's a very cool aspect of the house. And then the other thing, Tio, for people who want to support our Caring House project or want to, start their own charity, is to go on my website and see these 27 villages that we built over in Haiti, where I'm going to be in the next, as soon as they open up the travel again, so you can come see me and hear the different messages. I would encourage people to go to frank-mckinney.com. Follow me on social media, the Frank McKinney. On Instagram, I'm using that a lot more than Facebook, but I'm on Facebook too, but the Frank McKinney on Instagram. And, I just encourage people. You've interviewed a lot of people that I know. You interviewed, who's the other guy that you just did? Scott
Anthony.
Scott Anthony, fantastic guy. I mean, so people should tune into this. I mean, it's great content. It's free. People like me are making time available primarily because he's 18 years old and he's asking these kind of questions. I wouldn't make an hour available twice. I would try to, but I think it's fantastic what you're doing at 18. And I think people should really listen to you, and they should read your book that you're going to write, The 4 Pillars.
So I should call it the 4 Pillars.
The 4 Pillars, and the subtitle would be something about happiness, but we can get into that another time.
Yeah. So if you are sick of staying home, you could go to Disney online, what's it called in English?
Hyphen
McKinney.
Yeah. Yep. McKinney. Just Google me. It'll pop up at the top, and maybe we'll come back for a third round on something in the future. But I thank you for having me today, T.O., and everybody for tuning into his fantastic program.
Thank you for being on, Frank, and bye-bye.
Okay. God bless you.